is the legality of recording a sitting president like that and then making sure that that tape gets out to the public? For more on this, we want to bring in a constitutional law attorney, a no stranger to the show, Benno. You have the floor this morning. This is, first of all, this was just slimy of Brad Raffensperger. And, you know, I saw him all over the place yesterday trying to defend why he released this hour-long phone call. But I'll tell you what, that's a slippery slope if a sitting United States president can't speak with a Secretary of State from a state, and this person happens to be a member of his own party, and not think that that phone conversation is going to get out to the media. It's a real slippery slope there. So what is the breach of confidentiality here with this?
Well, there's a couple. Okay, so first, good morning, Rob. It's great to be back on the show. So there's a couple breaches. One, ethically, as an attorney, when parties meet, so they have the lawyers, the parties assemble together, and they're discussing a way to navigate through litigation to reach some sort of accord or settlement. Those kind of conversations are always supposed to be protected and private and confidential. Otherwise, you can, as you said, a slippery slope. You can expect that parties wouldn't be interested in trying to reach settlement because, you know, if they just thought all of their confidences were going to be aired to the public, then what's the reason to actually have that kind of conversation? And so what you'd end up having is a logjam where nothing ever gets accomplished and you have to take everything to the mat. And that's not what we want in our legal system. We want people to talk with candor and openly. And so that's the first breach right there, is that this was an effort to try to avoid more contentious litigation.
Is
the
there...
second...
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. The second issue is, you know, every state has different laws with respect to whether or not recording somebody in a conversation is legal. And that's really a state issue. Certain states allow you to do it as long as one participant on the call, presumably the person who's recording it, is aware of it. Other states require both participants to be made aware. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite certain what the, you know, whether the Georgia law requires two people or just one to have consent. But that's something that needs to be looked into also. And so those are the two main issues I think that you know apply to this. Thirdly is, you know, to the extent that Raffensperger can say, look, this is the president on the line, and so there's some sort of public interest in me airing this. Go ahead.
No, it's so slimy. You know, and I've now listened to this call a couple of times. It's an hour long. When you listen to it, it sounds like a podcast. It's entertaining. This is Donald Trump. The guy was never politically correct. This is why 74 million people just voted for him. He's a fighter. He's not Mitt Romney. He's not going to roll over. He's going to fight. His political life is on the line here. I wanted to play you a soundbite from Hillary Clinton when she was talking about if the election is close, November 3rd, what Joe Biden should do. I think we have that soundbite. Take a listen.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch.
Okay, so there is the former 2016 Democratic nominee giving some not so subtle advice to the 2020 Democratic nominee. President Trump is doing exactly that. There was nothing wrong with this phone call. Two Democratic members of the House want the president censured for this. I don't think the people that write the articles for the Washington Post listen to the actual recording. They might have listened to sound bites that were plucked out of MSNBC or CNN, but there's nothing wrong with this phone call. So what's wrong with what the president is doing here? He's just fighting.
There's nothing wrong with what he did, and you're 100% right. If you listen to the phone call, you'll realize there's nothing wrong. There's an old adage in law where they say that if the facts are on your side, pound the facts. If the law is on your side, pound the law. And if neither are on your side, pound the table. Here is a lot of table pounding. They do not have, if you listen to it, the facts are not on their side. He did nothing wrong. He wasn't trying to pressure anybody to find votes. He's merely discussing, as many times parties do in litigation, saying, this is all I need to do in order to win in my litigation. And for the mainstream media and for the Democrats to spin this a different way, they're pounding the table, trying to make something out of nothing. The fact of the matter is it's exactly like what happened with the sham impeachment of President Trump with the phone call with Ukraine. There was nothing there. But you know what? If you repeat this lie enough, some people will believe it.
Yeah, people will believe the lie, and that really was a perfect phone call. Quickly, tomorrow's another big day in Washington. The certification of the Electoral College votes will happen tomorrow. I've been looking at this and trying to find some case law to sort of look at what Vice President Mike Pence's powers are as the president of the Senate tomorrow. I think, for one, it's not going to be a ceremonial event tomorrow. But what are the checks and balances in place on the vice president, the president of the Senate, Mike Pence in this case?
Well, that's the checks and balances are what's written into the Electoral Count Act, which is the federal statute that governs how the joint session proceeds tomorrow. And so essentially it's a ceremonial role. Now, there's been some argument that he has a more substantive role, some plenary power, absolute power, to decide whether or not to accept a slate of electors or their votes from a given state. That's not my read of the statute, frankly. I think that there has been, people who sort of push that narrative are saying, well, if we look back to what happened in 1961 after the election between Nixon and Kennedy, when Nixon was the president of the Senate,
sure,
he actually proposed to the Senate to, there had been a Hawaii vote, and Hawaii had originally gone to Nixon, and then a recount went to Kennedy. And then when it came time for the joint session, Nixon told Congress, the joint session, that he believed that they should count only the votes that went for Kennedy. Now, what's important is, in this case, that was not a plenary power. He actually asked for them to invoke unanimous consent, which means he gave the choice to Congress. And if somebody had objected, it would have gone to a debate, and they would have had to have decided which slate of electors they wanted to count. And Nixon also said at that time that what he was doing was not setting precedent. He was explicit about that. So I don't think that case gives any sort of precedent. I think that Mike Pence's role is ceremonial. And I think, though, that we will see some exciting debate, and there will be fireworks.
It is going to be interesting, absolutely. And by the way, I think that Hawaii, I think they switched over to Kennedy's column after that. Nixon was being a gentleman. He was so much of a gentleman, he talked his way right out of the White House, and JFK became our 35th president. That is Amir Benno. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Great information there. We will be watching what happens tomorrow on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.